Just how much pressure are the Denver Broncos up against as they prepare to face the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round this weekend? And as Colorado's star tackle Jordan Seaton prepares to enter the transfer portal, the question is starting to be asked, is Coach Prime fully equipped to build the Buffs back up around new hopeful quarterback Julian Lewis? Those will be the subject of today's rundown. Thank you so much for joining us. While you're here, guys, you've heard me say before, I will say it again. If you haven't subscribed to our Denver Sports 1043 The Fan YouTube channel, you are missing out. Just an absolute treasure trove of content, short form, long form, radio, digital, you name it, we have it at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Of course, if you're watching us live on X or on Facebook, we love you. We appreciate you. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so that you never miss a moment with us. But go subscribe to the Denver Sports 1043 The Fan YouTube channel first. Want to welcome in friend of the program, Jake Shapiro, Denver sports analyst for denversports.com. Jake, I want to get going with a little Broncos conversation here because now that we know how the wild card round has fizzled out, and I say fizzled out because it started about as hot as you could possibly imagine from a football perspective, then it feels like the last two games kind of thudded a little bit on approach there for a landing. But as a result of that, we now know that the Denver Broncos will once again, for the second consecutive year, face Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. But this time around, the game will be in our backyard at Empower Field at Mile High. And I think this is kind of becoming an interesting evaluation as you look at both teams, Jake. The Buffalo Bills, who have been essentially in a title window in their own mind for the better part of the last half decade or so, because anytime you have a quarterback like Josh Allen at your disposal, your goal is to win a championship, and there's a strong push to do so. The Broncos, on the other hand, feel like they have just shot out of a cannon and are maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule from where we thought they might be, despite the fact that the reality is they are where they are. They're a 14-win team with a quarterback on a rookie contract, which creates a little bit of a window in and of itself. So right out of the gate, Jake, let me just ask you, who do you think is under more pressure to win this upcoming Saturday between the Buffalo Bills and the Denver Broncos, given the dynamics that each team are facing right now in the AFC?
Last year, there was zero pressure on the Denver Broncos to win that game in Buffalo. This year, there is pressure on the Denver Broncos to beat the Buffalo Bills. It'll start raising some questions about Bo Nix and Sean Payton if the Denver Broncos are unable to defend home field as the one seed in the AFC. But the Buffalo Bills have a tremendous amount of pressure on them, way more pressure than the Denver Broncos do. I mean, just look at the narratives around the NFL. It's Josh Allen, it's Joe Burrow, it's Lamar Jackson, it's Patrick Mahomes, these elite quarterbacks in the AFC. And all of them are out of the way for Josh Allen, for him to finally get his. Everyone has anointed Josh Allen as this is the season that he will get his. And I don't know that that's true. I kind of thought they were going to struggle in that Jacksonville game, and they did. They only won right at the horn, right? Like, we saw them as one of the miraculous comebacks of the weekend. So I kind of don't think that this is as guaranteed for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills as a lot of people do. But that being said, with it being guaranteed by people, that brings the pressure. And just look who's favorited in this game. The Denver Broncos, how many times, and I don't know off the top of my head because I'm not a sports gambling historian, but how many times in NFL history has the number one seed rested for an entire week and then been the underdogs hosting a team that second week of the playoffs? It's kind of crazy.
It's happened twice, Jake, in the last 25 years or so, I believe, since 2002. It was the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles, who were the one seed and were home underdogs in the divisional round after the bye week. And I believe in 2011, it was the 49ers against Sean Payton's Saints, who were underdogs at home as the two seed back when you had multiple bye weeks in the postseason. I'll say this, though, Jake, I might actually talk myself into taking the other side of the coin here, because I understand when you look at the game board the way it is shaken out for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, that this is a postseason for Josh Allen more than most, but really for any AFC team where you say no dynasty Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson and MVP, no Joe Burrow, who has kind of been fighting to stay in that wild card playoff round for a couple of years now with injuries and whatnot. If there was ever a year for Josh Allen, whose only major obstacle to reaching a Super Bowl and potentially winning one has been the other stellar quarterback play and teams in the AFC, this is that year. But when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, who is still in his prime, I think there is a more reasonable assumption that the window for Josh Allen is more open or can stay open for longer, given what Josh Allen has proven at the NFL level over the course of his career. Now, the Bills have failed to build around him adequately, and that's something that needs to be fixed, but that's an identified problem. I think the Broncos, acknowledging that they may have catapulted themselves way ahead of schedule from where we thought they'd be, and maybe where everyone outside of that locker room in Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, thought they would be, because Sean Payton put it out there before the season. I don't think any of that matters now, because the reality is they're here. They're the number one seed in the AFC. They're a 14-win team. They've put themselves 2 home playoff games away from a return to Santa Clara for Super Bowl 60. And Jake, if they don't at least win one game in the postseason, I actually feel like there's an argument that you could say that there are some aspects of this season that feel like a failure, because you didn't learn anything or you didn't progress in a postseason sense, which is what ultimately matters, I think, as it's the goal for NFL teams, than what you did when you lost in your first opportunity in the playoffs last year. Plus, you factor in, do we know who's going to be the defensive coordinator for the Broncos after this year? Do we know for sure that the way that the division has shaken out with Kansas City and an all-time spike in the Patrick Mahomes era in a negative way, and Joe Burrow being out, Lamar Jackson being out, do we know that the path to a Super Bowl is ever going to be more paved for the Broncos than it is right now when you look at the landscape of the AFC, the fact that they're the top seed with a bye week, and home field advantage throughout the playoffs? It's hard to win in the NFL, Jake. And I don't know that the Broncos can realistically say, or we can realistically predict, that they're going to have a better path than this within Bo Nix's rookie contract window.
Yeah, look, the team will be better next year, in my opinion, because of Russell Wilson's salary comes off the books. Bo Nix is still a rookie, or at least on the rookie contract. You understand what I'm saying? And you've got some parts you can work around with this organization. And I personally don't know that Vance Joseph's going to leave. The news that just broke while you're talking that Mike Tomlin's out in Pittsburgh might affect that, because ESPN projected today that Vance would not get a job, but with one more job opening, maybe that impacts that. I don't know that losing Vance is that big of a deal if Jim Leonard is stepping into that seat. So I still think the Broncos got a window. I mean, the schedule is going to be really tough next year with the NFC West and a first place schedule. No doubt about it. I'm not too confident that the Chiefs are going to be right back, because Mahomes is going to miss half the year, all that type of stuff. So I think there's still a window. There's a runway for the Denver Broncos. I think the biggest thing to me in the pressure in saying it's a failure is, yeah, they should have gone further this year if they do lose this weekend. Like, it's just raising some questions of, is Sean Payton, capable of winning playoff games, capable of running this offense to make it look like it's not, honestly, dog throw up half the time? Can Bo Nix connect on some passes? Like, those are some serious questions. But from Buffalo's perspective, Richie, like, they've had this quarterback for a while. He's one of the best players in the league's history. He's fantastic. Sean McDermott might not last past this game if the Bills do not pass this game. Like, you have bigger questions about the Bills than you do about the Broncos long-term and moving forward if the Bills fail. And let's put it this way. The Broncos have not failed, not in a long time. I mean, the last time they were in a Super Bowl window, they won, right? And the last time they had any sort of expectations was that Super Bowl. Like, they haven't really had any expectations for a while. Last year, they didn't have any expectations. They just went to Buffalo. It was awesome. They played in the playoffs. They broke the streak. Cool. This is the first year they've had any sort of expectation. Buffalo's had expectations since the 1980s and has been failing and failing and failing and failing. And you don't think the fans there are going to get nervous as they open up a new stadium and ownership spend all this money on a new stadium? Look, they've got so many questions around that team if they fail in this game. And on top of it, Richie, it's not like it's just Josh Allen. They have the best rushing offense in the NFL. So they've given him something on offense. Well, everyone goes, oh, they don't have a number one wide receiver, which I say BS. Khalil Shakir is awesome.
Yeah, he plays in the slot, so it's different, but yeah.
Right. And they have the number one rush offense in the NFL. Like, they have a good, capable team carrying Josh Allen equally to Josh Allen carrying them. And they should make a Super Bowl this year. They really should. And the Denver Broncos stand in their way. And if they don't get past the Denver Broncos, I think the Bills have to ask some serious questions, way more serious than the Denver Broncos have to ask this year.
No, I think that's valid. Ultimately, I think there's a compelling case for both sides. Jake, I think when I look at where the Broncos are at now, when you talk about the window being open, the pathway being clear and just falling short, and the difficulty that it requires or that it is to get back to that mountaintop year after year after year with that expectation, I look at a team like the 49ers, right, who are clearly loaded with talent. They always seem to struggle with injuries, especially on the back half of a season, or there's just some untimely moments and some unfortunate situations in the postseason that ultimately lead to their demise. And you look at a team like San Fran, who's got Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, who's playing at a high level, plus all the talent they have from Christian McCaffrey to everybody on the defensive side of the ball. And they say, just like a lot of us in the media say, oh, they'll be back, they'll be back, they'll be back. But I'll be damned if they don't just keep hitting their head on that freaking ceiling every year. And so I just think when the cards have fallen the way that they have in the AFC, but specifically for the Denver Broncos, who are pacing the field in the AFC, man, to have an extra week off to prepare, to have home field advantage, to not have to worry about going through the perennial powerhouse quarterbacks and teams in the AFC by a good stretch outside of Josh Allen, it just feels like, man, the stars are aligned, the runway lights are on, and they have to, in my opinion, have a legitimate effort at capitalizing on that, or I'm going to be looking back at this season with a lot of what ifs and can you imagines, and it'll feel in a lot of ways like we talk about the 2012 season with Raheem Moore, and it's like, man, that team would have been unstoppable, and it's like, what if they had just gotten past Buffalo? I want to avoid that if at all possible this postseason.
And I don't know if they're what ifs or they're just, we go back and we question it, was this team fraudulent? Like, right. I don't think anyone questions that 2012 team as being fraudulent. They just got beat in a playoff game by a really rough play. Like, that's what happened. If the Broncos get beat down by the Bills, which some are projecting on Saturday, I think we look back at this season and go, have the Broncos beat anyone the last 2 years? Like, right. Are we sure this team is good? Like, and that all of a sudden bakes into the Mile High City where we've thought this team is good, but everyone on the outside is like, no. So if they lose this game and badly, I wonder if that thought starts to creep into Broncos country. I know it will into my head.
It is time to hit the turn, Jake, presented by The Birdie Bar, Louisville's premier indoor golf bar and entertainment venue. With their mini golf setup and outdoor heated patio, they have the perfect cure for your winter blues. Although I got to say, you haven't needed too much winter blues curing with the winter that we've had thus far, which outside of a moisture perspective has been pretty easy for those of us here in the metro area. But Jake, I do fear that we're headed for some potentially choppy waters up in Boulder with the Colorado Buffaloes. I think there was already a lot of hype and speculation into this season going off of a 3-9 season in the Big 12. And now you look at the offseason where you're transitioning to a full-time kind of pivot toward Julian Lewis, who will unfortunately be without, it seems like, his blindside protector in Jordan Seaton. The highest rated signee, as you pointed out at denversports.com, for the Colorado Buffaloes in more than a decade at 6'5", 295 pounds after 2 seasons in Colorado, appears to have his eyes headed elsewhere. How big of a blow is this to the Colorado Buffaloes offensively, given all of the change that they're already having to make and the expectations and the hopes that they have in the Big 12 Conference?
Colorado has now lost its best offensive player, its best player, and its best defensive player to the transfer portal over the last couple weeks. And maybe the second best defensive player as well in DJ McKinney. So this is really bad, Richie. This is really, really bad. This is quite the blow to Juju Lewis, particularly, as you pointed out, the quarterback. But I will tell you, as the season wrapped up, it felt like Jordan Seaton's time in Boulder was coming to an end, and everybody was okay with that. And when they hired Brennan Marion to be the offensive coordinator, it made even more sense that Seaton would be gone, because the style of play that Marion likes to run, the go-go offense, which is run heavy, get quick to the line of scrimmage, run a lot of run plays, is kind of counter to what Jordan Seaton's strength is, which is as a pass protector. And we saw this his first year where Shedeur dropped back and threw it 50 times a game, right? That Jordan Seaton was great. This year, even in run protection, Jordan Seaton wasn't really that good. Like, he's a really great pass protector and he's going to be a first-round pick. But this felt like it was coming. And then the fact that it didn't come, and we were sitting here with the portal closing on Thursday and Seaton was still a member of the Colorado Buffaloes, and you've got people whispering in my ear that he made a hype video saying he's going to come back to the University of Colorado. It's like, okay, I guess Seaton's staying. That's huge. Maybe this team's going to be better. Maybe I misevaluated Dion. And then all of a sudden he uses that hype video to say he's leaving instead of staying, the one the university made. And he's going to leave for $2.5 to $3 million. And he leaves a giant hole in your offensive line to be filled by 3 or 4 transfer power 4 guys. Okay. I mean, it's devastating, Richie. Like, everything that you love about college sports and everything I've loved about college sports as someone who grew up in Boulder, Colorado, is watching these guys become men in front of your eyes. And we have seen that with Jordan Seaton get better and better. And from day one, when you're like, oh, wow, we've got one of the best high school recruits in the country, to now where it's like, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be a first-round pick, maybe top 10. And he was so valuable, and he was steady through this very rough 3-9 season, and he was one of the leaders on the team. And you're like, wow, now Deion Sanders is here, and these guys that are really good players that prove themselves aren't transferring out. Oh, no, it's the exact same situation as Christian Gonzalez. We just have Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, to be the coach for all of it. It's the exact thing Colorado has been going through for years, and people will tell you it's different now because Coach Prime is there. No, they're just more eyeballs now. That's the exact difference. Everything else is the same. There's just more eyeballs.
Boy, it's tough to hear you spell it out like that. It really does kind of leave a grim outlook. Now, it is worth mentioning that there have been some incoming additions via the transfer portal that I think are noteworthy. Danny Scudero from San Jose State, Boo Carter, the all-SEC caliber player coming out of Tennessee. It doesn't necessarily create a 1-for-1 or a 2-for-1 swap with a guy like Jordan Seaton, who, as you mentioned, is your best player, one of your best signees in the last decade plus. But Jake, I again feel like we're asking the same question into this offseason with Coach Prime and the Buffs that we've asked certainly last season and definitely in his first season as well, which is, what are the expectations for the Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Prime heading into this season? When he first got here, it was, hey, he's the portal king. He had like 90 new players, so it was going to take some time to gel. Didn't go that well, fell apart, off the rails on the backstretch. Then it's like, okay, but it's year 2. It's got to be better. And boy, was it. They shot out of a cannon. They win 9 games. They had the runway lights on for a Big 12 title appearance until it fell apart against Kansas. And then they come crashing back to earth with a 3-win season this past season. And it feels like we're in this rebuilding phase again. So where is your head at, and what should the expectations be for Coach Prime and the Buffs in 2026?
My head is at a different spot than clearly CU's leadership and the fan base to some extent. I know some fans agree with me, but I would tell you that the expectation is that Coach Prime should be competing for the Big 12 in a college football playoff based on the fact that he's paid like a coach that should be getting you there. Now, a lot of people have made excuses for Deion Sanders going 3-9 this year, and will tell you that, oh, Colorado should just be lucky to get to a bowl 1 out of every 3 years the way they've been playing for decades and decades. That's BS, Richie. Like, they're paying so much money for Deion Sanders to provide them with a winning team on the field. That's what they're paying Deion Sanders to do. Now, people will obfuscate that and say, no, they're paying Deion Sanders to generate money for the University of Colorado Boulder. And that's maybe what leadership is believing. At a certain point, though, that money is going to stop flowing if they can't win. I don't know when that's going to be, but even late last season, they weren't selling out games at Folsom Field anymore. The attendance and TV numbers were dipping, both. And they have less money in their coffers because of that. So I'm personally of the belief that if Deion Sanders can't get this momentum pushing back in the right direction this year, things are going to get really scary at CU Boulder, because they're going to have some conversations about what that Deion Sanders contract is with the new athletic director, while at the exact time knowing they can't really get out of it because they don't have the money to. So I don't know what the next step is if it goes down that path. That's a very vague expectation of just positive momentum, and it is so soft for what Deion Sanders is paid. But I'm telling you, the people in charge are expecting positive momentum. So if they win 7 games this year, I think a lot of people are going to be happy. Personally, me, I'm telling you, if they're only winning 7 games and you're paying the coach $12 million a year or whatever it is, it's like, are you kidding me? That's the most kid glove expectation we could possibly have for this guy that everyone wants to name the second coming.
Jake, for all intents and purposes, you reached inside the back of my brain and pulled my thoughts right out of my head. You can count me in the minority with you. I said it pretty much right from the get-go. By making the move and bringing in Coach Prime and adopting this new NIL transfer portal style of college football where you're competing for real, the expectation is that you are in pursuit of and contention for a conference title and a college football playoff experience, especially as the playoff continues to expand every single year without exception. Jake, Curt Cignetti has turned Indiana football, the losingest program in the history of college football, into not only a national powerhouse, but a legitimate candidate for the next Saban-esque dynasty in college football. And he's doing all of that with 0 5-star recruits and a small enough number of single-digit recruits that you would factor it in as a rounding error for other teams in the Power Four. If he is able to do that at Indiana, then he's probably underpaid for the services that he's been doing, which is why they've ripped up his contract, I think 3 times now over the course of just a couple of seasons. So for Colorado, who is not equipped and hasn't been previously to jump into the cesspool of college football from a financial standpoint up to this point, if they're going to jump in head first, then the expectations come along with it. You can't play this middle ground of we're paying for a top-tier collegiate coach, but we're not getting top-tier college football on the field. It's so frustrating to me because people, to your point, whatever word you used was fantastic. They muddy this evaluation by saying, well, look at the increase in revenue here, or look at the uptick in admissions here, or the eyeballs there. And all of that is great. But ultimately, to sustain all of those things, you need to have the success on the field backed up, because otherwise the well runs dry and the coffers close up. That's just how I see it.
Couple things. Indiana is one of the few programs in college football that's somehow worse than the Colorado Buffaloes. One of the few. And I know Colorado Buffalo's history in the 90s, and I'm not even saying take it out. Like, I'm just saying based off the last 50 years of football at each, like, where's the arrow pointing the furthest down? It's like Indiana, Northwestern, and then Colorado's down there in the bottom 5, right? Like, Colorado's not far off that. So Cignetti can do that at IU. It's possible at CU Boulder. Secondarily, Cignetti's strategy of getting proven players at the FCS level and taking them to the FBS level seems to have been adopted by Deion Sanders to some extent in this transfer portal. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Deion's shift in strategy from chasing 5- and 4-star guys to guys that have been a little bit more proven in college, at least at the lesser levels. And you look at some of Deion's most successful players at CU Boulder, and they were all guys that were thriving at Jackson State. They weren't these 5-star guys that failed at Alabama and they come to Boulder and they're like, oh, where's my bag? So I'm interested in those couple things, as well as the shift in strategy from being a pass-heavy offense to a run-heavy offense, because that's going to be something that happens with Brendan Marion. So there's a lot of different things and a different approach that are happening at CU Boulder this year with the football program. And I like that admission by Deion Sanders. Those are the right things he should be doing. Is it enough? I personally don't think so. And the problem is, and you mentioned all of the money that he's bringing in and the attendance and all of this other stuff. Fernando Lovo was just made the athletic director at the University of Colorado with one goal in mind. By the end of the fiscal year, 2026, he needs to raise about $25 million to cover a projected budget shortfall. Deion Sanders makes $10+ million a year. Colorado is probably staring at cutting sports because of Deion Sanders as the head coach and what they have to pay him. And I'm not saying they're going to cut skiing or cross country. I don't know what it's going to be. But let's say they cut cross country. And to you in the general Denver sports sphere, you might be going, who cares?
Right.
University of Colorado's cross country program is one of the best in the country. It is consistently winning national titles. It was used by Nike as a test school, an honor granted to just a handful of schools around the country because they wanted to test their products on the most elite runners in the country. One of the things that is core to Boulder is running. Like, you go to Boulder and people are just running.
Yeah.
It's running and cycling. So while that might not matter to you, like the general sports fan, if they have to cut cross country because Deion Sanders' contract and his inability to win football games, which he's paid to do, it would be a devastating blow to a lot of people in that community.
I actually agree with you on that. And obviously the skiing program is world renowned. It's got Olympic ties. It is, but it's one of those things that almost regardless of the sport, Jake, it does feel icky to have to consider those things for a program that's going to struggle, as they did last year at times, maybe to win 4 or 5 games in a college football season. I think that we are on the precipice of what could be a very significant defining year in the trajectory and the immediate path of the Colorado Buffaloes, not just as a football program, but as a university, with all of the ripple effects and outward impact that success or failure on the field could have.
Yeah, and as an alum, I can tell you, I'd rather see you be in the situation DU is in. I'd rather the Buffs not have a football program or be a Division II football school or some sort of FCS level football school and be great at all these other sports, which seem more important to the university, than keep trying and failing at football to the point where it's now affecting and perhaps cutting other sports. There are only 15 sports on campus in Boulder, Richie. Most people don't realize that. It's one of the fewest amount of D1 sports offered. There are 9 women's sports and 6 men's sports. So if you're going to get that number down to 13 because you're at 5 and 8 because of Deion Sanders couldn't figure it out in football, what's the point? Like, what is the point? I do not understand the approach at this point. And it's Rick George's last move to hamstring the university as the athletic director of just being desperate. And I said it the day they were hired, and people killed me for this, Richie, but Deion Sanders and the University of Colorado is not a marriage of opportunity. It's a marriage of desperation. CU Boulder was desperate enough to hire Deion Sanders because they saw no other way forward with football to save their program in this changing environment. And Deion Sanders saw CU Boulder and said, I can't get another Power 4 job. This is my only chance. I'm going there. And that's exactly what happened. And look, the result was great in year 2 because of his son and his adopted son, Travis Hunter. But beyond that, we'll see. And so far, it's been really bad. And yeah, he can recruit. We know he can recruit. Well, the best player on his team after every single season has walked away so far. That's not a good sign.
I think it's a great place to leave it, Jake. A marriage of desperation, not a marriage of, what'd you say, opportunity?
Yeah, hope, opportunity, whatever you want to put it.
Wow, that's a little bit of a bar there from Jake Shapiro at Shapalicious on Twitter. Jake, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate everything you do with the coverage of all of our local teams at denversports.com and here on our Denver Sports social channels. We will catch up with you again in the very near future. Love it. To the rest of you out there, have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday afternoon. Is it Tuesday? Tuesday afternoon. Make sure you like and subscribe like I told you before, and I'm going to tell you again. Like and subscribe to our Denver Sports 1043 The Fan YouTube channel, at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And I promise you, once you are there, you will find at your fingertips an absolute treasure trove of content, sports, entertainment related. If you want it from our radio hosts, Stokely and Evans with Mark Schlereth, Dover and Cecil, The Drive with Zach By and Philip Lindsay, there it is. You want to catch our buddy Jake Shapiro, who just popped on the screen there with our social media manager, Anilo Piro, for some Mile High Hoops content? You got it. Scrappy Will Peterson and Drew Spivak have the Avalanche covered with Mile High Hockey. You got shows like From the Nosebleeds, This One, The Rundown, and Orange and Blue Today with the one and only Andrew Mason, and Cecil Lammy, giving you the latest and most up-to-date Broncos insight, information, and analysis each and every weekday. It's all there for you on our Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan YouTube channel at Denver Sports 104.3. We'll catch you tomorrow at noon for the next rundown.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put in